Hey there, do-gooders and evildoers. Welcome to the grand finale of the 2020 Rewind, this series of build and test and play videos that I've been going through for the last few months, looking at 20 different level 50 heroes and vigilantes and rogues and villain characters that I'm running on the City of Heroes Homecoming servers, Excelsior Shard, Episode 20, Thebe, Dark Miasma, Fire Blast, Soul Mastery, or what I call the Forbidden Build. Why is it forbidden? Because back in the day, rewind time for all of you old timers there, and for all you noobs who don't know any different, back in the day, the game started in 2004 with just heroes, just blue side, and there were a large number of power sets. 2 years later, City of Villains came out, red side, and a bunch more power sets were added. But those two sides did not have overlap in several of the power sets. And several of the archetypes did not have access to the power sets that heroes had or what villains had. But then as the game progressed, a couple more years and the alignment system and side switching became a thing, the development team started proliferating power sets. They started allowing power sets that were only available on one side. For instance, Poison was a debuff set that was only red side, only villain side. But then when the game proliferated, they proliferated it over to controllers as an example. But like defenders couldn't have it. And one of the things that defenders couldn't have, even from the get-go, blue side, was that they didn't have Fire Blast. Because the idea, from what I remember hearing or reading about this back in the day, was that the developers thought there's no way in Hades they're going to give Fire, which was the most damaging blast set, probably still is, they're going to give it to defenders. Because defenders, even though they have this billing as weak or squishy or soft, which they are pretty squishy, but they have force multiplication abilities with their buffs and debuffs. They can take a basic power set and turn it into god mode by debuffing the enemy or buffing themselves. So the fear was if you gave defenders access to this wicked powerful Fire Blast set and paired it with, I remember people talking about this fire and kinetics. Oh, a kinetics defender with Fire Blast would be insane. And I think corruptors actually could do this. And so it was this idea, oh man, they'll never do it for defenders because they're going to have too much buff because their buff powers are more stronger than anybody else's in the game. And a lot of people are always saying, oh, no, 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 no. But I was always in my head going, man, I wish I could do a dark fire because dark and fire to me is going to be way more powerful than kinetics and fire because with kinetics you got to get fulcrum shift off, and fulcrum shift requires you to dive into melee, which is probably the last place most defenders want to meet. But with dark miasma, you got this little thing called tar patch that you can drop from range around a corner and lay it down and then drop a rain of fire on top of that. And then with all the procs and the invention system, you can absolutely obliterate targets from around a corner. And those are just two of the powers we're going to take a look at. So Thebe is the forbidden combination because I forget exactly when Fire Blast finally became available to defenders. I think it was late in the game's lifespan, maybe a year or two before it shuttered. I'm pretty sure it was right around maybe CoH Freedom. Don't quote me on that one. And hell, it might even been a homecoming thing. But anyway, it was late, late, late in the game before defenders finally had access to Fire Blast. I'm gonna see if I can even find that date for you. Give me 1 second. All right, I found it. Here it is from the homecoming, the unofficial homecoming wiki, which is a spin-off of the Paragon wiki. Here it is. The set has been in the game for blasters. That's okay. This is wrong right here. Was not in the game right here. This is what I'm talking about. Defenders got an issue 21. It was in the game originally with blasters. Corruptors, who came in with issue 6, which was City of Villains, they had access to it. But bam, it wasn't given to defenders until issue 21. Issue 21. Convergence. Major revision to CoH, COV, and it was what one? Primal Earth? First Ward? Yeah, this must have been, I think, the issue right after Gold Side was introduced. Anyway, it wasn't in the game till way, way issue 21, which was released on September 13th, 2011. So that is 7 years after the game started. And then the game closed in, what was it, 2012? So, yeah, it was late, late, late in the game when defenders finally got Fire Blast and you could finally make these overpowered murder builds that could just destroy enemies. So anyway, I'm just excited thinking about it. Memories. All right, I'm going back in time. All right, boom. You see what all you youngsters never had to experience? You guys just show up to the game and you got everything laid out to you on a silver platter. You know, the old timers of the game, you guys know what I'm talking about. You had to work for shit. You had to wait for stuff to show up, right? You had to cut your teeth. Anyway, let's take a look at Thebe's mids build here. She's a defender, and the forbidden build of Dark Miasma and Fire. Let's talk basic idea, right? She's going to be a murder machine. Lots of damage. Basic idea of dropping shit around the corner like Tar Patch, Rain of Fire, or just running right into enemies, unleashing with Fearsome Stare. I've got Howling Twilight slotted as a weapon. You've seen me use Howling Twilight as a weapon before in a couple of my other characters. If you've been watching some of my other videos, like Dark Current, my my the session 50 of the 50/50 showcase that I did a year ago, she was using that as a powerful tactic. As a matter of fact, she was kind of the inspiration for this character because I'm a big fan of Dark Miasma on, well, anybody really, but I saw how powerful Dark Soul was, and I just thought, what would happen if I started pairing other sets? And Fire and Dark combined are just utter destruction. Anyway, don't want to spoil it. We'll see it in the test videos. But this is her overall build. Let's kind of start with the big numbers. So without any of the incarnates or your other special sort of toggles like Darkest Night, that sort of thing, we're looking at this right here. So just raw slotting. She doesn't have much in the way of defense, right? Single digit. A couple teens here, Fire and Cold. And then resistance is not too shabby, 50% smash lethal. Negative's pretty solid from Shadow Fall plus Dark Embrace, my two resistance shields. So I've got 66.7. Defender cap on damage resistance is 75. Psionic's pretty solid, but again, not overwhelming. But you're gonna see similar to, well, any Dark Miasma is gonna be able to leverage a lot of minus to hit debuff. So I'm gonna be able to layer this foundational stuff plus the debuffery that my power sets bring to the table, plus my incarnates to really jack these numbers up. But it's kind of starting here as a foundation. So pretty decent resistance build going here. Not so hot on defense, but defense is going to be much better when we take a look at the incarnates. Then the one concern that comes out right away is recovery end drain relationship here, this ratio. You've heard me talk about this before. I always want to have at least a 2-to-1 ratio, which I have. I love 3-to-1 much better, which, I'm about 2.5-to-1 at this point. But knowing Fire Blast, if everybody knows, it's pretty high endurance, heavy build. Plus, I'm pretty high on the recharge side of things because I do have Hasten, which when I click it, you can see my recharge going up to 100, 2.5%. So I'm going to be firing things rapid fire, high burn build is what you're going to see here. So this 1.3 to 3.4 is misleading. It's probably like double this, especially if I start toggling up, Darkest Night, that pops it up to 158. If I go ahead and have, let's say I do have sprint on right now, so that's one way I can kind of save a little endurance. I could shut that off. But, if I go and put on everything, at a 2-to-1, not even ratio at this point. Well, about 2-to-1. So it's going to be a high burn build. So that's something I'm going to build for is endurance. I do this with pretty much all my defenders because most of them have a lot of toggling going on. You're blasting, you're buffing, you're debuffing. You got debuff toggles running. You're going to burn through endurance if you're doing your job correctly. So that's one thing to keep your eye out for. And then I've got a lot of hit going because I have tactics running. And that's also going to get jacked up by power boost. When I click power boost, boom, that jumps up to 71%. So that's going to be something that I'm going to be, taking advantage of. My endurance reduction is okay, right? About 9% across the board reduction. So anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the main slotting here. So we kind of know what I'm doing. I'm going to go for damage. I want to minimize my endurance consumption, maximize recovery, and boost my survivability because I am going to get a lot of hate with this build. I'm going to be throwing a lot of fire, which has damage over time. That's going to trigger aggro. And then you have like a debuff toggle like Darkest Night. That's going to give you aggro. Your tar patch is going to give you aggro. So you're going to have enemies that want to murder you. So let's go ahead and take a look at my choices for powers. All right, so on the Dark Miasma side, I picked everything except for Petrifying Gaze, which I've done this on a couple of my other Dark Miasmatists at this point. It's not because I don't like Petrifying Gaze, but because I'm going Soul Mastery. Soul Mastery has, bar none, the coolest hold in the entire game, Soul Storm. And Soul Storm does some decent damage. It's moderate damage uh, to hold, whereas Petrifying Gaze is just a hold, and I think it has like some to hit to buff with it. So again, I'm going for the damage side. I'm not really worried about stacking holds. This isn't like a controlling style of build, although I do have lots of ways to control because I'm going to show you how I've thrown in a couple little procs for holding. You've seen me do this in some of my other builds as well with devastation sets. So I will be able to hold stack. But Soul Storm is a damage and a hold, and it's going to be in my rotation of like, 3 single target, 4 single target powers. All right, so anyway, I got pretty much everything. Black hole, trash, get rid of this power, never ever take it. It's worse as bad as dimension shift and gravity. And if you ever play a gravity uh, dark miasma controller and take both of them, you are just plain old stupid. I'm sorry to tell you. Do not take those powers unless you're just trying to troll your team and you want to keep intangibilizing everybody on the field, which is horrific. Don't ever take either one of those powers. So you'll never see me take Black Hole. Anyway, Fire Blast, took most of those. I did not take the Fire Blast. I took Flares instead, and I think this is mostly because Flares, this was before Homecoming revamped the leveling where you can take either tier 1 or tier 2. So this build goes back to, hey, you have to take your tier 1 and your secondary. So Fire Blast, Flares, if I wanted to respec into Fire Blast, I could. It's a little bit more damage. It's a little bit slower though, so you're kind of a trade-off. I don't mind Flares, whatever. It does what it's supposed to do. I didn't take aim, and I know you're like, aim. Why didn't you take aim? That gives you extra whatever. I'm running tactics, okay? Tactics on a defender has huge bonuses as far as to hit. We're looking at a 40% to hit buff on this friggin' thing, I think. And then I've got the build-up proc in there as well, which is the Gaussian's chance for buildup. I think it's this one right here. Yeah, 80% damage. Oh, you guys can't see it. I don't have my pop-out window open. If you take a look, get the boost up here. It's going to pop up for me. There it is. Anyway, if I move my head there for a second, you can see it's 80% damage boost. So anyway, I've got tactics giving me 40% to hit anyway, nonstop all the time. So is aim really going to do more than that plus all the other crap I'm running? No. I mean, sure, it's another power, but then I'm gonna have to sacrifice. What else would I drop? You know, that's where you have to ask that question. I do have an idea of where I could drop something. For instance, I took super speed, and as I've mentioned in a few other videos, I rarely take any true travel powers anymore. A couple times I'll take what's the takeoff there from Force of Will. I like to take that one. But super speed's sort of a throwaway power. I don't usually use it, but in this scenario, I am going to use it a lot because I'm going to team that up with my Shadowfall stealth. So that'll give me invisibility, those two things combined. So anyway, that's why I have it. But I have everything else in Fire Blast. I mean, Fire Blast, really not much to say about it other than it does a lot of damage. So I have lots of damage, and I emphasize more on the AoE side with Fireball, Rain of Fire, Fire Breath, and Inferno. And then I've got Blazing Bolt, Blaze, and Flares as my single targets. So, and I have blazing bolt slotted with the fast snipe on the experienced marksman set here. And that's going to turn it into a an all the time single target attack. There's no interrupt chance on this thing at all. So I'm going to use it in my rotation of 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, which is going to be flares, a blaze, blazing bolt, and the aforementioned soul storm. So I have those fours on a fast rotation. Pow, 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 pow. So I was hammering those guys away. I'm throwing out rain of fire. I'm throwing out fireball. I'm breathing fire breath. I've got Howling Twilight slotted as an attack as well. So that gives me a nice quad combo of ranged AoE damage there. I can get into melee range, hit Inferno. I also got Soul Drain as another PB AoE attack that I can unleash, up close and personal. And all this is going off while things are standing on a tar patch. And tar patch, I've mentioned this a little bit before. It's got a 30% resistance, damage resistance debuff to it. So, and it's a pretty big, what's the radius on this thing? Range is, I got it up to 113 feet. Does it have the radius listed here? It's pretty freaking huge, is what I'm going to say. So it's got a really wide range. Tar patch. Let me see if I can get the exact information on this for you. Pull this open. Radius is 25 feet. That's huge, right? And it's 25 feet in all directions. So you drop your tar patch and you're unloading everything on top of the people that are on the tar patch, and it's got them slowed to hell and back. I mean, you got the minus run speed of 121% here. It's got a minus jump, a minus fly. I mean, you're just obliterating people while they can't barely move. And before you even do that, you can unleash with a fearsome stare, which is gonna like peg them to the spot because you're throwing a mag 3 22-second fear on their ass that carries with it a negative 23.1% to hit debuff. And so this is really where you're not just the offense we're talking about with dropping the patch and all this freaking fire stuff you're dropping there. Your survivability, even if all I had were these numbers here, survivability wise, if I open with fearsome stare as an example, I'm lowering to hit by 23%. And then if I throw darkest night on top of that, that's another 28% to hit debuff. So I've got like 60%, 50%, something like that to hit debuff just with those two powers unloading on the target. And then don't forget you got a damage debuff coming out of Darkest Night, 37.5%. These numbers just absolutely brutal. So if I'm just throwing out those couple debuffs as like an opener and there's a tar patch, I mean, I can just unleash fiery hell without blinking, okay, without much worry. And then throw Dark Servant into the mix because, little Fluffy here is going to help you survive for various multiple reasons. Let's see if we can pull up his effects here. Let me zoom that. So here we go. We've got his Chill of Night is dropping another 25% to hit. So if you have Fluffy within melee range, because you can fluffy bomb with this pet, just drop them right on top of targets that are already debuffed. That's going to lower the accuracy or to hit down to what, like 80 some percent at this point. So we're looking at a cumulative about 80% debuff already, and that's just the Chill of Night power. It also has the Darkest Night, which is a 12% debuff. So it could be Chill of Night and Darkest Nighting, and then it has a damage debuff of 22.5%, which adds to your 37.5%. So now you're lowering damage by like 70%. I mean, come on, right? It's got Tenebra's Tentacles, I think also has some debuffery on it. Let me pull that. Yeah, so it has Thieber's Tentacles, another 4%. It's got Petrifying Gaze, so there's another hold that you can throw out there. So Fluffy is like a mini, dark defender on top of the you're throwing out there. So you've got tons of survivability just with your base raw numbers, plus your pets, plus your pet, plus your debuffs that you're throwing out there. And you got all this wilting firepower that you're dropping on top of targets that's not going to let them survive for very long. And then on top of that, we haven't even talked about the friggin' incarnates yet, right? And I'm kind of skipping around, but I'm like, this is you're going to see this. It's going to freaking devastate people. Go down to the incarnates, right? Let's go take a look at the totals. When I go ahead and fire up Cardiac now, let me get my pop-out window again. Throw on Cardiac, that's going to boost up my damage resistances about 5% across the board, and it's going to lower my endurance drain. Let me shut off Darkest Night again. All right, so now my endurance drain without Darkest Night is 1. So now I've got like a 3-to-1 ratio or better at this point with Cardiac. I've also got Support Core, which gives you damage and accuracy defense. So watch the defense numbers when I click this. All right, look at that. Boom. I'm adding 12% defense by activating that. And then look at your endurance reductions dropping another 10% across the board. So boom. That's insane. Don't forget, I've also taken Clarion, of course, and I took the radial side, so there's status protection, which you need. But then you get range boosting, which I love, especially on this build where you're dropping crap at massive range. And then the plus special. You know what the plus special is going to do? It's going to boost defense. It's going to boost your controls. It's going to boost your holds, boost your debuffs, boost your heals. Boom, I click that. Your defenses jump up another, what's that, 15.5%, 16%, something like that. Oh, another 15%. My defenses are all in the 30s. Okay, that's pretty freaking solid, because don't forget I got all that debuffing going on. I got like minus 80, 90% debuffing between me and Dark Servant. And I've even got Diamagnetic Radial Flawless, which has the minus to hit minus regen proc. I believe it's a minus 5% debuff on the to hit that stacks 4 or 5 times, if I'm not mistaken. So there's another 20% to hit debuff I'm going to throw on top of everything else that I'm unloading. I mean, I'm flooring their to hit. Like any even level minion lieutenant boss, they're not gonna be able to touch this character. Okay, they're just gonna be they're gonna need Streak Breaker to even hit me. And then the minus regen is gonna stack beautifully with the minus regen that you pack in your Howling Twilight. Don't forget, Dark Miasma is a great like boss AV killer. You got Howling Twilight has minus regen of 500% right there. And then Twilight Grasp also has a minus regen of 50%. So you got that, plus you're throwing your minus regen from your damage procking. Let's see if I can pull that up on one of these guys here. So flares, yeah, so the stackable from my interface is minus 10% regen. I think that'll stack probably 4 or 5 times, I'm assuming. So I'm going to be able to absolutely bury the regeneration of any, like, AV, giant monster, whatever the hell it is. They're freaking going down, and they're going down fast. Not only do you screw up their regen, you've got, again, all that minus damage resistance we're talking about with Tar Patch. I've also put minus damage resistance procs in Fireball with Annihilation sitting here. I have another minus resistance Annihilation in Rain of Fire. Fire Breath has one also. Who else did I put one in? I don't think anybody else. Inferno, no. So I think I've got, so what, 3 different minus resistance damage procs. Sick, right? Come on. I've got the, oh shit, I didn't even show you guys what happens when you hit Power Boost, right? Check out Power Boost. So there's all my numbers right now. I mean, the pop-up window. When I Power Boost, boom. Look at it, it's disgusting. Unfreaking real. 50% defenses. Hello. I mean, come on. Check out the to hit buff. I'm going up to 81%. That's why I didn't bother taking aim, right? I mean, I don't need it. It's freaking disgusting what I'm going to be able to do. And that's going to increase all my holds. Look at Soulstorm's numbers with this shit all toggled and clicked. 50-second mag 3 hold. Hello. You're held. Then I've got a hold proc sitting in Blaze. Devastation has a hold proc. I put the lockdown Mag 2 proc sitting here in Soulstorm. So I'm definitely going to be holding things, 2-shot or 1-shot holding bosses all the time. I've got some damage procs sprinkled in here as well. Let's see, Theft of Essence. I didn't put any damage proc there. Flares has the Superior Vigilant Assault. We got the Absorb proc sitting in that one. Gosh, where is it? I think, yeah, Fearsome Stare has the chance for negative damage. in it. Howling Twilight has the chance for fire damage in it. Blazing Bolt, already told you what that one was. I thought I have another one of these chances. Yeah, smashing damage, obliteration, and an Inferno. I think Dark Servant. Yeah, Dark Servant, I put the chance for negative in him. So I've got damage procs sprinkled in here on top of everything else. So this build, in my opinion, is absolutely devastating. It's the most devastating, just damage-wise, defender I've made ever. I think she's just a freaking shredding machine. And if you put her on a team where somebody's just drawing a little bit of aggro tank, or there's a controller on the team that locks stuff down, she's just going to obliterate stuff in front of her. Now, compared to the raw output of a blaster, I mean, a blaster doesn't have to lay down tar patch, all sorts of things, unload. But if you give her a few seconds to drop a couple debuffs, it's lights out. Okay, throw the tar patch down, throw a fearsome stare on there, whatever, right? It's over. Okay, you throw blaster in here with her, it's going to be 1-2 lights out. Everybody's going down super, super fast. Anyway, this is her build. I think it's going to be awesome. I'm going to go ahead and run some solo stuff with her against my friends, the council, yet again, one last time for the road. And then I'm going to go ahead and run some team stuff and show you how she works in that. I don't think you're going to see much difference. I think on solo, she's not going to have a problem, knock on wood. She's got a lot of debuffing to keep herself safe. She's got a lot of firepower to melt enemies. I don't think soloing's going to take that long or be that challenging. And then on teams, she's going to accelerate the burn, and pretty much she could carry a team if she needs to. All right, well, there you go. This is Thebe's build. I'll post this over to the Homecoming forum, so you can check it out for yourself and download it if you want. And then in the meantime, we'll check you out in the upcoming solos and then the final team build runs. Team missions. We'll see you in those later videos. Take care. Pieces.